Every year, Magic releases a holiday card. Rather than the cheesy poses and tacky sweaters, it's an actual Magic the Gathering card. Magic hands these out to people at their holiday party and then ships them out to influencers. Sometimes it's just seemingly random influencers who happen to be in the nerdy sphere. Sometimes it's content creators that have dedicated a lot of time to Magic. Here's where I'd put mine, if I had one of course. These are neat little designs that bring a lot of holiday cheer to the game. Of course, these are all silver bordered, acorn stamped, and not tournament legal. But if the holiday season is about anything, it's about being together. That's why I'm making it my quest here today to find a home for every holiday card. Here's a commander deck that could house each of them. Hi, I'm Harrison and I run these here parts. We'll start with the first one ever. Fruitcake Elemental was printed in 2006. For 1 green, we get a 7/7 Elemental that is indestructible. At the end of our turn, it will hit us for 7, but we can also pay 3 to give it to an opponent. After looking at more recent holiday cards that I'll get to eventually, this one is easily a fully functional card. It is very in the spirit of the season to have the first card be able to gift itself. And as such, I wanted to follow that lead. But the biggest problem I found here is that the best gift-giving commanders are Zedru and Blim, which notably lack one color between the two of them, which is green. So instead of that, we're going Pelifort. Glunch the Bestower will gladly take Fruitcake Elemental. That's the first time that sentence has ever been said. We aggressively go shields up, hand our opponent the 7/7, and then make them take damage. There are even cards that will give us hexproof in these colors, so once we hand that elemental away, it's not our problem anymore. If it's swinging and connecting each turn, it'll be dealing 14 damage to our opponents each turn. Let's jump to the next year. In 2007, the first iPhone just dropped, and the holiday card for this year is Gifts Given. A play on the card Gifts Ungiven, which would have come out for the first time a few years prior. The card's so good, it's currently banned in Commander, largely because of its ability to fail to find and force specific cards into your bin. So let's see what this Christmas themed parody is bringing with it. Gifts Given is a 4-mana instant. We search an opponent's library for 4 cards with different names and reveal them. That player chooses 2 of those cards, puts those chosen cards into the graveyard, and the rest into your hand. Then that player shuffles their library. So it's basically the same exact card, except we're trading our wacky graveyard shenanigans for theft. I'll be honest, this card doesn't really need a home because it's just generically good. This is one that could legitimately be printed nowadays. They'd probably want to alter the mana cost to make it more fair, and would need to rephrase it so the cards would go to exile rather than our hand. But this could work. I think this could be generally good in most blue decks. You run the risk of your opponent having some graveyard interaction to get their best stuff, but you could essentially strip someone of 4 of their best cards and go up 2 yourself. As it is currently worded, I'd put this in a Cecily Haunted Mage and an Othlam Sigardian Outcast Friends Forever deck, better known as 11 and Mike. I wanted a 5-color deck because Gifts Given doesn't accommodate for your mana base. So if you're running this in a mono blue deck, it needs to be a mono blue card you steal, which limits your options. If we're in 5 colors, we can steal from everyone. This also synergizes a little bit with 11. Her triggered ability cares about having 11 cards in hand, and since this card as written puts those cards into our hand, that's guard advantage and that'll help us reach that goal. Next card. It's 2008, which was designated as the International Year of the Potato. I refuse to look any deeper into this Wikipedia entry. The card is Evil Presence, which has nothing to do with the old card, Evil Presence. Evil Presence is a sorcery for 2 black, and it says put a card from your hand into play under an opponent's control. That creature attacks each turn if able and always attacks its controller. Now we're cooking with gas for some weird out-of-the-box silverboard cards. But this is obviously Blim, right? First thought, best thought? His whole deck is about giving your opponents trash and then punishing them for it. Here you can give them some creatures and let it get in for some hits. You don't even need to have that creature get on the field yet. This card just fits so perfectly with Blim. Next card. It's 2009. Bitcoin has just started and it was a much simpler time. Season's Beatings is a sorcery for 4 red mana. Each creature an opponent controls randomly slaps another creature that same player controls. Now we're back to a card that could definitely still work. With that, they've written this in such a way that you really can't mess with it too much. It's the creatures that deal the damage, so giving the spell Lifelink or Death Touch will do nothing for us. Any amplifiers won't do anything if they're on our side of the board. So just like Gifts Given, this card is generically good. I would run this in any mono red commander deck, but I wouldn't really be interested in running this in anything besides mono red. 4 red pips is a lot, and to be honest, there aren't really any really good mono red commanders that speak to me more so than others. Ral Monsoon Mage is technically a mono red commander, but his main shtick is that he gives discounts of generic mana, and Season's Beating is only colored pips. Gimli Counter of Kills at least cares about your opponent's creatures dying, but this card's pretty boring. This is far from even the best Gimli. If I really had to pick one, Bergie is at least somewhat of a spell-slinging commander. Next card. The year is 2010, and the music group One Direction is founded. Magic printed Snow Mercy, which uses the infrequently supported Snow card super type, and the even more infrequently used untap symbol. For 2 and 2 white, we get a Snow enchantment. When a creature deals damage to you, put a globe counter on it. Then we can tap, untap, tap, untap, and tap Snow Mercy to tap all creatures with globe counters. I love this card. It's a snow globe that you're shaking, and honestly they could print this in a set with minor changes. It'd probably have to be more expensive, and it'd likely have to be an enchantment because Magic doesn't like having tapping enchantments, and you'd definitely have to drop the 2 extra taps and untaps. But this functions as an actual card, which is more than I can say for some of the future entries. I've already went to this well once, but this card is begging to be Pelifort, and I'm treating all of these cards as they're actually printed without my fixed version, so it's an enchantment. Enchantress and Pelifort go hand in hand, so Tuvasa works well as an Enchantress commander that could be used for Voltron purposes, and since Voltron requires you to put a lot of resources into one card, you need cards like Snow Mercy to protect your butt. Next card. It's 2011, February of this year the Green Bay Packers would win the Super Bowl, and past Harrison thought surely he would see another one soon. Oh, how much a fool he was. Fast forward to the holiday season and we get Yule Ooze. For 2, a red and a green, it's a 1/1 ooze. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy another non-land permanent chosen at random. Then put a number of +1/+1 counters on Yule Ooze equal to the permanent's mana value. This may be done at random, but it does get around hexproof and similar effects. Then you may pay a red and a green, eat some food, and you regenerate Yule Ooze. This predates food tokens being in the game and predates Magic massively cutting down on its use of regenerate. While there are oozes in red and oozes in green, to this day this remains the lone Gruul Ooze. Gruuls, if you will. No, that was bad. As far as I know, this isn't supposed to directly be parodying anything in the game or outside of the game, but it's more so just a classic play on what if food came alive? And I think Yule Ooze sounding like You'll Lose is just a happy coincidence. I'm surprised it took us this long to get a card in both of the trademark Christmas colors. I love this kind of silly little design, and as is, I think they'd be perfect type of shenanigans to throw in a cube. So into my Mario Party cube it goes. Random effects can be really fun in a game of Commander, but they're often hard to build around. You're never quite sure what you're going to get out of them, so you can't always prepare accordingly. I do think that Yule Ooze works immaculately with Kresh. Kresh cares about creatures just blowing up. As far as Kresh is concerned, this is a free sack outlet that just triggers once a turn and may hit one of your opponent's cards. Then, when Yule Ooze is getting kinda scary, we eat it, or sacrifice it in some other way. The ooze itself doesn't look too appetizing, but I'm willing to bet a raging human warrior like Kresh would be willing to take a bite. Next card. The year is 2012, the world is about to end, and Magic prints a split card, Naughty or Nice. These cards are complete opposites of each other. Naughty is 1 black for a sorcery, and it searches another player's library for a card, and then you put it into your hand. Nice is 1 white for a sorcery, and it searches your library for a card, and puts that card into an opponent's hand. This is the year of Return to Ravnica, which had split cards. Our Jax Films lookalike here has been on Diabolic Tutor since 2007. We run into a similar situation that Gifts Given had, where if we're stealing cards, we need to be able to pay for them. So I was gonna recommend Niv Mizzet Supreme, the one you forgot about. But split cards are always a little finicky with the rules. The most important thing we need to know is that while this card is treated as white and black for 90% of the time, when we cast it, it can only be white or black. And I couldn't find a concrete answer online if this interaction works the way I wanted to, and that you'd be able to recast Naughty or Nice from your bin. So instead, we're taking a turn to Nihilor. Nihilor as a deck already wants to steal a bunch of stuff, and if we're going the theft route, there are only so many commanders that do that while having white in their color identity. And Nihilor takes up 3/5 of the colors. So I feel like we're casting a wide enough net. Worst comes to worst, we steal someone's Soul Ring or Arcane Signet. Next card. The year is 2013. I have just learned how to play Magic the Gathering, and the card is Stalking Tiger. 5 generic mana for a 3/3 artifact creature cat construct. Stalking Tiger enters the battlefield with a pack underneath it, and when it makes contact, you get to crack the pack and put it into your hand. We're fully off the rails with crazy silver border magic now. This may be one of the cheapest ones to physically acquire, but we're going to make this brutally expensive for ourselves. We're going to play Brago with a twist. And the twist is we're running more artifact cards and cards that care about artifact creatures than we normally would. We're going to be flickering Stalking Tiger, getting a new pack under it every turn, and then we run something like Cyberdrive Awakener to give all of our artifact creatures flying so Stalking Tiger can get in and slap someone new. There is actually a surprising amount of interaction you can do with Brago and artifacts that I've never considered, so now I'm genuinely considering actually making this. Sans Tiger, of course. Next card. The year is 2014, and we have this sleek new frame, and the card Mishra's Toy Workshop. This card is almost a one-to-one parody of Mishra's Workshop, which is a land that taps for 3 colorless mana that can only be spent on artifacts. Mishra's Toy Workshop is a land that taps for 3 colorless mana that can only be spent on spells and abilities that put tokens onto the battlefield, and then we are legally required by law to use toys to represent these tokens. That's something they really like doing. Silver bordered cards that make tokens, but they need to be represented in some wacky way. This is one of those silver bordered cards that for the most part makes sense, but wouldn't work in the legal language that is Magic the Gathering. So my guess with the implication here is that tokens need to directly come from the result of this spell being cast. Like, I couldn't cast Elsbeth Sun's Champion off this card and claim that one of her abilities makes tokens, so I'm fine. Or we couldn't necessarily play Talrand as our commander and then claim that all instants and sorceries now make tokens, so we should be able to use this card. I think it needs to be direct, and the most direct commander this works with is Marneus Calgar. Not only does he care about tokens, but he also has a somewhat expensive ability that we can pay for with the Toy Workshop. And while it also runs a bunch of cards that make incidental tokens, it still runs some cards that are directly making tokens. Next card. The year is 2015 and the word Aphantasia is created. I don't know about you, but I can't imagine a world without this. Magic brings the card Goblin Sleigh Ride. It's a sorcery for 1 and a red. Target creature you control climbs onto Goblin Sleigh Ride. You slide them on their merry way. If the creature stayed on, it deals damage to its toughness to each creature it touched during the slide. Now we're fully 2 feet firmly planted in silver border wacky territory. They officially won't print dexterity cards into black border Magic anymore. Finding a home for this one was actually pretty easy. This card cares about toughness. All of my favorite toughness matter cards normally don't run red, but we do have one. Pramicon, Sky Rampart, is frequently used as a shields up walls commander that relies on turning everyone against each other. If we target Pramicon or another creature with lots of toughness and practice our tech deck skills, we should be able to wipe the board for 2 mana. Next card. The year is 2016, which I seem to remember people thinking was a crappy year when all those celebrities were dropping like flies, but I honestly feel like there hasn't been a good year since. Magic printed Thopter Pie Network. For 2 blue, you get an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you're eating, create a 1/1 Thopter. Use food to represent that token. When a creature token you control dies, if it was represented by food, you eat it. We're still about 3 years out from food tokens being a thing, but here's some more silver bordered Magic using something wacky as tokens. This card is a direct parody of Thopter Spy Network, and for the most part is almost entirely the same card. The only difference is that Spy Network is actually good and draws cards. So another easy one. Urza Chief Artificer is the deck that Spy Network is most played in, so its cousin the Pie Network will make do here as well. Next card. The year is 2017, the Nintendo Switch is released, and Magic prints some disassembly required. For a single black, we get an enchantment with an activated ability of paying a single black and sacrificing a creature. We then distribute the keywords amongst other creatures, and if it's December, we gain some life. I thought this was supposed to reference Evolutionary Leap, but I think it might just be a thing on its own. With this card, I want to treat it like its own secret commander. It will start in the 99, but the rest of the deck will be built to make sure we hit this card to get it out there. So as a commander, we're running Yargle and Multani, and then we're running a bunch of keyword heavy cards to sacrifice to give to Yargle and Multani. Bit of a goofy idea, but our commander is Yargle and Multani and our secret commander is a silver bordered pun. This deck is gonna be kinda goofy. Next card. The year is 2018. I celebrated my 30th birthday. Magic released Bog Humbugs. For 1 and a black, it's a 1/1 flying insect. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, hum that many notes to a festive song. If you can, you put that many counters on Bog Humbugs. This very well might be my favorite holiday card, and that's at least in some point to the fact that they substituted flavor text for the first 2 notes of Jingle Bells. So in a pinch, Bog Humbugs can help you get that first handful of counters. It's kind of funny in practice because the first time you're just humming a note. Who's to say it isn't a Christmas song? There aren't that many black cards that care about counters, so we're going with Atraxa. This way we can get counters without humming, but this does mean we're going to have to hum even more next time. Next card. The year is 2019, which was claimed to be the best year in human history by several sources, including the New York Times. Which gotta say, that's a massive miss. Magic printed Decorated Knight. For 3 and a blue, we get a 3/3 human knight. It has the adventure Present Arms for 2 and a blue. Exchange your library with another deck you own from outside the game. Shuffle. Then the actual card has the triggered ability. Whenever it attacks, you draw a card from your original deck that's outside of the game. Ooh, this is perfect for my Mario Party Cube nonsense. This was the year that Eldraine came out, which introduced us to adventures, so it makes sense we see it here. Decorated Knight puts us into a little bit of a pickle. So far I've been completely talking about Commander because that and Historic are the main formats I even play. Its silver borderness completely breaks the rules of reality within Magic, so we're gonna go with it. Have you ever wanted to build a commander but desperately needed it to be another color? Or have you ever really wished you could run more than one copy of a card in that deck? This card allows us to play one deck, and then we cast Decorated Knight, and we get to swap decks. But it doesn't say anything about commanders. We're going to go extra deep and run Lord of the Nazgul as our commander. In the base deck, we're going to run Decorated Knight, we're going to be able to tutor for it, but we're also going to run the 9 copies of Nazgul here, and then 9 copies in the second deck. Wraiths are also a super undersupported creature type, so we can run all that support twice in both decks. And the second time we can run Esper or Sultai since it doesn't need to fit color identity rules to the first deck. This way we can gain access to a bunch of token synergies that would make this card go crazy. You've heard of Secret Commander, now get ready for Secret 99. Next card. The year is 2020 and absolutely nothing notable happened this year. Absolutely nothing. Magic printed Top Deck the Halls, a portmanteau of top decking, the act of playing cards off the top of your deck, and the classic Christmas carol of Deck the Halls. For 3 red and white, we get an enchantment. Decorated cards in our hand have Miracle for a single snow mana. A couple things here to explain first. They describe Decorated as anything premium, which is the word they use for foil, anything promo, and anything with alternative art or frames. And Miracle is an old keyword that meant if this was the first card you drew this turn, you could reveal it and pay an alternative cost at a ridiculous discount. So any bling we run, we can cast for cheap. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we control 12 decorated permanents, we win. This card reminds me of effects like Sneak Attack and Nahiri the Harbinger. So looking around, we're running this in Pantlazaw, Sun Favored. I want to be able to run as many expensive spells in this deck as we could, but I also want to make sure that we can afford them if we weren't cheating them into play. So I wanted green. We just have to make sure that we're running exclusively foil snow basics, and as much of the deck is foil alt art as possible, and we'll be able to hit that second ability sure enough. Next card. The year is 2021. The whole lot of nothing that happened the previous year continued this year, and Magic printed Last Minute Chopping, a macabre pun on last minute shopping, a common problem for procrastinators alike who just forget that Christmas exists for 11 months out of the year. For 1, a black, and a blue, we get a sorcery. Ask target opponent if they remember to get you a present. If they say yes, they put a card they own from outside the game into your hand. Otherwise, you gain control of target permanent they control. It depicts siblings of Gisa and Geralf who hail from Innistrad. I think this card finds a home in Kenrith the Return King. I'm not a fan of throwing it into a 5-color deck, but Kenrith easily functions as a group hug deck. All of his activated abilities can target any player, and we can reasonably build some additional group hug mechanics around it. There aren't really any decent group hug commanders in black, but I think this card kinda needs to be Group Hug. I love Group Hug in the style where we flood our opponents with resources, so they get out the biggest and scariest cards, then we play Last Minute Chopping, and if they didn't remember a present for us, we snag their scariest threat. But we've also greased the wheels a little bit for them, so maybe they'll take kind to us and give us something scary from outside the game. 5-color also means we can actually cast a spell that they give to us, even if it's outside of these colors. Next card. The year is 2022. I've turned 30 again. Magic released Chaos Wrap. For 2 and a red, it's an instant. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library. Then they may look at the top card of their library and may wrap it. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, they may put it onto the battlefield face down as a 4/4 red present creature. It also has the reminder text to wrap a card, put it into a lot of sleeves. If this creature would be dealt damage, remove a sleeve from it instead. This is a parody and a strictly worse version of Chaos Warp. And since Chaos Warp is basically a second tier commander staple, I think we go back to the same well as Last Minute Chopping and go with Group Hug. Fortunately, Red has more and better options available to it than Dimir, so for that reason we're going Zedru. She is the ultimate Christmas card. If they are going to make a Santa card, it'd be a reskin Zedru. This video wouldn't be complete without her, so she will be the home for Chaos Wrap. Next card. The year is 2023. I remember it as if it was only last year. The card for this year is Seasonal Sequels. For 3 blue and X, we get an instant. Pitch the titles of up to X holiday-themed sequels to target spell. Copy that spell for each title pitched, except the copy has that name. You may choose new targets for the copy. Reminder text, simply adding numbers isn't festive enough. The flavor text features Sword of Hearth and Home Alone, 8 Crazy Nights Charge, Holiday Incinerate, and Phyrexian Gremlins. The art features several characters who are mainly from Ravnica. I can't identify some of them, and they might be from off-plane, but for the most part, they're Ravnican. And features the puns Die Hard and Scales and Lanoir Elf. So whether you think Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not, it is on Ravnica. The pun writers at WotC were at the top of their game here. This card wants to be a spellcasting deck that is heavily blue. I think we can get away with Veyron and Spell Singing, and then filling the 99 with cards with Magecraft like Stormkiln Artist and Archmage Emeritus, so they can cash in on the copies of the cards. You'll need to brainstorm some holiday-based puns on card names, but including Veyron and other blue-red cards from Strixhaven is secret tech. Prismary Christmas is gonna be very useful for you. Next card. The year is 2024. This is the year that Harrison the Mana Dork released a video cataloging each of the holiday cards from each year and then put them each into a deck. Magic released Eggnogger's Stash. For 5 and a green, you get an enchantment. Lands we control have tap, refill your mug with a festive drink. And at the beginning of our combat, if we have a drink stash, creatures we control get 2 +1/+1 counters. This card is a direct parody of Bootlegger Stash, but with an added ability. So even an Acorn Stamp and Silver Border was still seeing power creep. This also features Magic's ugliest mascot, Loot. I really don't get him. Ashnod's Coupon is an auto-include in whatever deck we put this into, and I really like this card with Bristly Bill. I knew I wanted mono green so we can go hardcore with land-based ramp, so that we could go crazy with whatever festive drink of our choice. This way we can guarantee we have that stash. Bristly Bill also makes counters and doubles counters. If we fill the rest of the 99 with cards that make tokens off of landfall triggers, this deck will just go off. Next card. There is no next card. The year is 2025. The Earth is no more. The video is over. Don't forget to bolt your birds.